there, commercial construction coffee talk fans. Thanks for chiming in. My name's David Corson. I'm your host. I'm also the publisher and editor of Commercial Construction and Renovation magazine. This is what it used to look like. We went digital in August of 2021, but I've got this is May 2020. Mr. Glenn Davis, he just retired, director of construction for Domino's, largest franchisee. He's been around forever, and I'm still friends with him on LinkedIn and Facebook. And let's see how big this one was. This one was 116 pages. And what was I doing back here? Oh, I think this was right when we were talking about going digital and so forth. But it's always good holding the magazine in my hands and what I was doing. And I had a little more hair back then, and it wasn't as gray. But uh, another good-looking issue, and we. It's been an amazing ride. Across 40 million interactions, hits on my website, people consuming content this year. That was an amazing feat. So everybody out there that finds us on Google or wherever you find me on the search bar, thank you so much for reading our content. It's been an amazing ride, and hopefully next year I'll go over 50 or 60. But it's just been I couldn't have done it without you. So I'm grateful. It's the holiday season. I'm thanking you, for being a visitor as well as a unique user. We've got 300 to 400,000, depending on the month, that for people coming back, consuming stuff or looking at the magazine or our podcast and all the other things that we do. So, it's that time of the season where you got to say thank you. So I thank you so much. But it's Friday here, TGIF. There's only one left in the year, and we're closing out 2024. You got the big holiday week next week, Christmas and happy Hanukkah on the same day, and uh, down here in Atlanta, it was cold. Now it's warm, and I've been busy building my lake house, and I've got final inspection. Well, I had my inspection, I fixed it, so gonna get that approved next week and go into insulation and sheetrock, and it's all downhill from here. And it's just an exciting time to be alive. Can't wait to close out the year. Ecstatic to be alive in 2025. I can't wait to see what happens. Just in general, it's going to be an amazing ride. Make sure you button up your seatbelt as we go into the new year, because the first quarter, Q1, is just going to be unbelievably exciting. Never a dull moment. But I first have to finish 2024 out, so I'm finishing up my last issue, holding down the fort. And through the holidays, getting decluttered, clearing my desk off, and getting ready to right out of the gates on January 1st and get going and redo it and do it all again. But anyway, I've got a nice lady. She's actually a DU alum, and her name is Gretchen Gagel, and she's out of Kansas City. She's an industry construction veteran, but she is the CEO founder of Women in Construction. Gretchen, you tell me who you're with. I don't want to butcher this.
Yeah.
Who are you with?
Yeah,
Say
just
hi
started.
first. Say hi first to our an audience out there,
Hey, everybody. Happy to be here. Thanks so much, David, for having me on the show.
and tell us the organization that you're building right now.
Yeah, I'm building a new global institute called Women Thriving in Construction. So I've enjoyed a 40-year career in construction. It's been a lot of fun. I love the industry. I am so proud of everything we do to solve these complex technical problems in the world. And so now I'm on a bit of a mission to help as many other women be successful in the industry as I can. I'm also stepping down as chair of the Board of Brinkman Construction in Colorado, and I divide my time between Australia and America.
Yeah. Well, we were talking, we were, we're DU alum, and she sent me a note. Hey, I saw you, your picture for your lacrosse. I see you're doing hockey, and we were talking before, and we all knew, we have an editorial board member, Dr. Levin, and he's a part of the Daniel School of Business, and he runs the
Yep.
construction management department. So we were talking about all these things, DU, and she grew up being a DU Pio, and going to games and so forth. So it's so cool when I have alum on there. I don't care what they have when they were there or whatever. It's just one of those things, once a pioneer, always pioneer, and it's just exciting to have an alum, especially, and they're hockey fans too, that on the podcast. So welcome, and we can't hear your wait to hear your story. The way this will work, we're going to do it in three parts. You're going to tell us your story, where you grew up. I know where you went to school, and then how you ended up where you are today, and with the new, with the new global initiative and institute that you're doing. And then we'll talk about lessons learned from the last 4 years of the roller coaster that we've all been in, and any trends or things that you see coming up in 2025. And then you'll leave your contact info and one positive thought or phrase with our audience, and then we'll close it out. So, with that said, Gretchen, Pio, fellow Pio, alum, the floor is yours.
Well, it's funny because I'm also an SMU Mustang and they're playing in the playoffs tomorrow when we're recording. So I was at a DU hockey game last Saturday night and um, I grew up in Kansas City. I left in 82. I'm now back because my grown kids who grew up in Denver live in Kansas City. So I finally threw in the towel last year and said, okay, I'll buy a place in Kansas City. I went to engineering school. My father told me I couldn't go to engineering school because girls didn't do that. And when I turned down Harvard to go to engineering school, he actually disowned me when I was 17. And that was a big life lesson for me that people shouldn't go around telling other people what they can or can't do because of whatever it is about them, right? And that I can make decisions that are good for me. I loved getting a mechanical engineering degree. Ralston Purina hired me as their first female operations manager in
Wow.
1986. So 62 men and me in the country. I ran a dog food plant in Oklahoma. I ran a cereal plant in Davenport, Iowa, and then a baby food plant in upstate New York. So by the age of 27, I think I had 800 employees. And I left that career to get married and settle down in Denver. That's when I did my MBA at University of Denver and joined FMI. So I was at FMI from 94 to 2005, advising contractors, doing strategy work, started their owner services group, big business. In fact, I was talking to Mike Mayra, retired with General Motors today. He and I worked on our first project in 1994 together. And I just love the industry. I've been president of Continuum Advisory Group too. Um, and yeah, inducted into the National Academy of Construction in 2021. Big
Congratulations.
thank you. There's only 480 of us, I think. Maybe we're up to 500, 14% women, I think. But it was a very liberating moment for me, David, because I went, I don't think I have anything left to prove. And you can imagine that path that I just described, being the first woman at Ralston Purina, the second woman at FMI in 45 years. Um, and I didn't really think about that. I thought about what do I want to do that's challenging, that helps me learn and grow. I went back at 50 and did my PhD. I'm actually Dr. Gretchen Gagel. I forget that sometimes, but I fell in love with the construction industry. And as I said, we build and maintain the assets of civilization. Without us, nothing happens. No cell phones, no roads, no airports, no hockey arenas, no lacrosse, no Barton lacrosse stadium. Laura Barton is actually a friend of mine. I forgot to mention that.
Peter
And
Barton Stadium, it's beautiful.
yeah, she did it in honor of Peter, her husband, who passed
Yeah.
away. And
Hmm.
but none of that happens without construction. And I just continue to want to make it a better place and to help all people thrive, and especially women.
Yeah. It's funny when when we started there, we used to play on the soccer field, and
Hmm.
the hockey team was king, but the lacrosse team, we were like at the bottom of the barrel. But
Yeah,
we'd have to go clean the arena, the old arena, before they built Magnus, and we'd set up for rock, concerts that they had there. But we'd go to the games, and then everybody would go to the parties, and we'd be at, if you were a lacrosse player, you had to go there because we were trying to raise money for uniforms and this and that. Now they got Peter Barton, they sell it out every game, and it's just, it's unbelievable what they've done there. And the construction, what when you didn't live in a dorm when you were at DU, did you?
I was getting my MBA,
Yeah,
so
yeah, so you were
I
going,
was
yeah,
29.
yeah,
Yeah,
because I was in JMac, it's gone. They've torn that down, and
yeah,
they built that whole side, the other whole of the side. They're doing all this construction, and uh, it's just amazing when I go back there every time because Denver in itself has just exploded.
yep.
DU in itself, they've done a really good job, and it's exciting to see it. And like I said, just like you, I have fond memories. I mean, it was an amazing place to go to school, and all sorts of people were there. And look, it could snow one day, and it could be 80 degrees the next. And and I did everything. I skied the glacier, I hiked, I camped, I fished, I did all of that stuff, and it was just awesome. And what a place,
You,
what a beautiful place to go to school.
you probably remember when DU was the first team west of the Mississippi to make the lacrosse playoffs. And I
Oh, yeah.
happened to be assistant dean at the Daniels College of Business at DU at the time. So I graduated from DU. I was assistant dean of the business school for 2 years. And I forgot to tell you, I actually still teach there. I just finished a quarter 4 weeks ago. I teach in the MBA program. And anyway, the announcers, when they came to Barton Stadium, and it was like, oh my gosh, they actually have a stadium. They were shocked that the unsophisticated lacrosse program, because nobody west of the Mississippi could have a good lacrosse team or a beautiful stadium, and they showed them, didn't they?
Hey, listen, when we won the national championship in 2015, that was the first time that a national championship was west of the Mississippi. It was
Hmm.
the biggest thing for the lacrosse world ever that a Western, DU, how could they win the national
Yeah,
championship? And they did
crazy.
it with, 35 different, states and countries and some Canadians, and they brought Coach Tierney in, Hall of Fame coach, and just it was an amazing thing to see the program go the way it is. After 60 years of lacrosse, they finally won their first national championship, and now they're a powerhouse. They're there every year, and uh, and still the hockey team. Look, they won hopefully they can three-peat this year, which would be me. I got to update my banner because I'm missing some national championships up there, but it. It's we don't have a foot. We used to have a football team back in like the early 30s or whatever. You go through the athletics center, you can look at all the old pictures when we had a football team, but we didn't have one. We have a hockey team, and a lacrosse team, but it's uh, it's an amazing place, and you are a true student athlete, and you represent the school, and um, but yeah, the Daniel School of Business, the construction management department is an awesome place. I had a bunch of, like we were talking earlier, I had a bunch of buds that got their degrees with that, and it's just in a very exciting place. And everybody out there, y'all went to school, so y'all have your tie. But I'm
Yeah,
telling you, Denver Pioneers, we stick together. No
we
pun
do.
intended. It's just one of those things. Gretchen Stevens, hey, I saw you, and I was like, oh my God, this is gonna be I don't even know if we're gonna talk to you. We're just gonna talk to you, you know? So, uh, but uh, talk about how you came up with with the women's initiative, because you know what, I've been a publisher for 25 years, and I had a few females on my editorial board, and they came to me and they said, "Why don't you have more women on the cover?" I said, "I don't know. I just, we get people on there and we feature them." So I took a look at my circulation. And it was probably about 65-35 women to men. And then
Mhm.
little by little, it's got even, and there's probably even more women. But the one thing I never understood is, if I'm a guy and I'm trying to design a female, apparel store that they're going to buy women's clothing in, why would you want a guy doing it when they don't understand
Right.
about fixtures and how much room that they should be in, or how the dressing room should be? I
Yeah.
mean, men are just wired differently. So when I took it, so I did this women in construction retreat, and then I put this woman in, and little by little, and now the women are taking over construction. And I come from a construction family. My family's been in recycling, demolition since 1888.
Mm.
So when I grew up outside of Philly, when I got my driver's license at 16, all the grandsons, that's just the way I was. The granddaughters, they didn't have to go out in the scrapyard, but if you got your license, you had to go and work in scrapyard. My first superintendent was my
Mm.
uncle Frank Schuler, and he was one mean son of a gun. And you wanted to make sure you weren't there at 7:02. You wanted to be there at 6:55 in the AM, ready to go with your acetylene torch. And my grandfather was a combat engineer in World War II underneath Patton. He rebuilt all of the bridges that the Allies had bombed and helped rebuild Europe. And so I come from that family of hard work, working with your hands. I still have my electric set, and I just learned a long time ago that, but right now I'm a builder. I mean, I don't use a two by four. I used to do paper and ink when I was doing the magazine. And listen, I build one of these every month and I'm proud of it. But now I do it digitally. And I'm building my empty nester house with my wife. She's a contractor. And I told her when we bought the land, I said, look, when we build this, we're going to build it ourselves because we want to learn how to do this so you can use it for your portfolio. So we're just finished. We've got the roof on and everything else, and we just went through our major inspection, and now it's all downhill. Yeah, once insulation, sheetrock, you got to pour the
Great.
driveway. So, but she's a female, and I said, look, we're gonna do this thing, and um, it was funny. All of our neighbors, there's only 52 homes in the subdivision, but they've all walked in and they're like, "Oh my God, we liked how you did that, and you found that space and this and that." And I said, "Yeah, babe, look, you walked through all their homes when they were building it. Now they're going to go through ours and make sure because your reputation's on it." But everybody said, they had a little, uh, all the wives got together and had their Christmas party, and they were all telling her, "Oh my God, your house is beautiful," blah blah blah. And I said, "Look, you designed it. You're a builder. You got it together." So women. I have no problem with women, and it's so nice to see you were, going into that male dominated arena and then as you and look what you're building right now with your institute. So congratulations. Kudos to you.
Thanks.
You know,
Yeah, it's been an interesting ride. I mean, and we're publishing the first global status of women in construction, looking at 20 countries. It's going to be out in early 2025. China's actually in the lead with 16% women. We're at about 11 to 12% in the US, although some people debate that number. Australia's at 14, Indonesia's at 1.5. So we're really trying to highlight globally what's working to get women into construction. We have less than 4% women in the trades. And to me, it's, electrician, carpenter, there's they're great jobs. They're great paying jobs, and how we attract more women. And then at the top end, in the boards, chairing Brinkman Construction, I've never met another woman chair of a significant construction company. So I think we have a ways to go, and so I've kind of fallen into this in some ways.
yeah. So before, talk about just because I know your resume's got Brinkman on there and a couple other things. Tell us a couple other things that you've done before we get into our second phase of our interview. You know.
Yeah, so I also right now sit on the Global Risk Committee for GHD Engineering. They're a $3 billion engineering firm. And what's fun about that, so I moved to Australia 6 years ago and had to learn from scratch. I knew one person, how they contract, what their industry culture is. I sit on the Construction Industry Culture Taskforce for Australia. I sit on the AGC Diversity and Inclusion Committee for America. So I'm hearing from two continents these conversations, and they're very similar, and the statistics are very similar. But GHD, 45% of their engineers are in America, 45% in Australia, and then they've got the UK, Middle East, and Chile. And I'm the outside advisor on their global risk committee. So, one thing with women, you can't be what you can't see. And so, being in these very high profile board and board committee positions, and it's fun because I've been in the industry for 40 years and I get to leverage my knowledge. I fell into running a women's leadership program in the pipeline industry when I moved to Australia because I just finished my PhD in leadership. And my big clients, General Motors and Intel, don't exist in Australia. We don't make a car, we don't make a computer. All the big construction spend is in infrastructure and government, light rail, tunnels. And I just kind of fell into running this women's leadership program, and it was fun. And now I'm running it in America with the Construction User Roundtable. And and then Wiley found me and said, "Hey, will you write a book about women leading in construction?" So that's due out April 1st. It's called Building Women Leaders, a blueprint for women thriving in construction. It's available for pre-order on Amazon as we speak. And I'll be speaking at AGC in Columbus. I don't know why they're having their comp. I love Columbus. NiceHorse there has been a long-term client of mine, but yeah, so just serving on boards, running women's leadership programs, still doing a little bit of advisement. I'm coaching seven senior executives in the industry, and really just trying to make the industry a better place.
Hey, all the power to you. I mean, women power, like I said, women are wired differently than they are men, but they're a good way to build something because men can bring their positive and their aspects and their knowledge, and then women have it. But when you merge them together, you can build beautiful, beautiful things. And
Yep.
and
There's a lot of research out there. A Harvard Business Review article recently that said the number one differentiator of what makes a team smart and able to solve problems is whether there's women on it or not. And it's not women at the expense of men. I really want to stress this. There's enough. We have a 750,000 person shortage in construction in America, 290,000 shortage in Australia. So we're all clamoring for talent, and we need to be accessing diverse talent pools to be able to deliver our construction projects. So we can all win. We can all win in this. Um, Definitely.
Yeah, my son, he wanted to play D1 lacrosse after he went to we went back when they won the national championship. We went for alumni weekend, but he didn't like history, he just wanted to work with his hands, and uh we wanted to get him into shop class, and they said he didn't have the mathematics skills. And I said, "Look, if there's one kid in this 3,000 person high school, all right, that you want to put in the shop class, it's this person right now. He's flipping cars, he's working on engines, he wants to be a mechanic doing whatever." And they didn't put him in. So I yanked him out of school. We homeschooled him. He went up to the local garage where we got, master mechanic, hired him, and did his online. And then first he wanted to be an auto mechanic. I said, if you don't have your own shop, you're not going to make money. Got to have your own shop. Then he goes, well, I'll be a motorcycle mechanic. I said, well, you got to work someplace warm where they ride bikes all year.
Right.
And then we took this tour of this place called AIM, Aviation Institute of Maintenance. And they've got about 20 campuses around the country. And it was an old grocery store that they renovated. And you learned sheet metal, welding, woodworking, avionics, anything that has to do with the jet engine, 2-year program. And then he got out, and then you got to get your certification, which takes a year, three written tests, and then two hands-on. Uh, and he got hired by Delta. And his first day down there, he calls me a couple hours later. He goes, "Dad, I just had a recruiter call me from Boeing, and they want me to move to Charleston. They'll pay me 5 times what Delta's paying." I go, "Well, what did your boss say?" My boss said, "Get the hell out of there." I said, "Well, come on home." So came home, went online, found a guy that had a room, and my wife, they drove over to Charleston, got him settled, and he went to work. He was in the plant for the first year as a contractor, and then they hired him on full time. That he became a flight op spec. So he would work on all the 787s that are $350 million airplanes that would come out of the factory, and he would work on them for delivery, or any of the planes that came back that needed to be tweaked. So he could be in the wheel well, he could be up in the cockpit, and knew everything. And then he was there for 3 years, and had a little bit PR with Boeing. I said, "Look, you've had a good run there. They've been good to you." He got his pilot's license, and I said, "Look, go put your resume out there." And so now he's down at FlexJet in Dallas, at Dallas Love Field, and working on $20 million Challengers. And I think it was his dream job. And it's just that, some kids are, meant. But I went through the skilled trade thing, and so I put a student newsletter in my magazine last year about getting people interested. You got to do it between fifth and eighth grade, in my opinion, because once they get into high school,
Yeah.
they drink the Kool-Aid. I got to go to Florida State or Duke because they've got the big commons, and you should see how beautiful the pool is and all that. And if we can plant the seed and get, just, one person out of every person become a welder or a contractor or an HVAC tech or a PM or a superintendent, and male or female, doesn't matter to me, because we need it. Because without people, this country's not going to get ahead. It's not going to be the leader. And it's so important to have those specialty trades to get things done. And I didn't know about, what the shortage was in Australia, but I'm sure it's short all over the globe.
It
And
is. Yeah.
and but I lived it, so I've kind of, whenever I can, get someone, I'm like, "Look, if you get the newsletter, if you know someone that has a kid, send it to them, and plant the seed, because we need construction people. And especially, now with, the election's over, everybody's kind of motivated. And construction has been on, pretty good tear right now. But a lot of my clients over the last 3 or 4 years, they said if I had more project managers, superintendents, I could have had better years. I had some of the best years over the last couple of years, but
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't want to bite off more than I can chew. And if I had more of those people or just more subs that I could get done, I would have taken on more business. And uh, and there's nothing wrong about being a plumber or an HVAC tech. It could be anything. And it's not blue collar. It's very rewarding. And like I said, you can go by and say, "Hey, I built that." I had a
Yeah,
gentleman, an architect, that he goes, "Hey, I take so much pride in when I'm driving around. Hey, I built that." And all the subs that worked on it, they all say the same thing. So
yeah,
it's kind of a really important thing with me about getting younger people interested in construction because you can have a great, whether you work for someone else or you become an entrepreneur and have your own contracting firm, no matter what that skilled trade is. So.
yeah. I agree 100%.
Absolutely. So let's talk about March of 2020. Everything gets goes kaput, and people are trying to figure out things. Look 4 years ahead. We're still kind of talking about we're out of the tunnel. There's still some hindrances with labor, product shortages, etc. Talk about what you saw out there and lessons learned that our audience out there in commercial construction coffee talk would find of interest that you saw being, that you're tied in with all of these different firms and et cetera.
Yeah, I mean, it was a much different experience in Australia, I'll tell you that. I moved from Canberra to Melbourne April 6th of 2020. And Melbourne had the most brutal lockdown. So I moved myself right into that, which was interesting. I think just prior to moving to Australia, my PhD, I actually studied three things. I studied leadership, I studied org culture, and I studied agility. I wanted to understand how leaders create nimble organizations that can react to changes in the business environment. And the pandemic was a black swan event, and I wasn't as interested in that as, inflation, shipping problems, supply chain, all the things that we've experienced in the construction industry, seeing lumber prices go up 40% in the United States. Brinkman is a large apartment complex, timber framed apartment complex contractor. And so this ability of leaders, and we're good at this in the construction industry because we're cyclical, right? We have ups and downs, and you've been in the industry long enough to know it goes up, it goes down, it goes up, it goes down. Actually, more contractors go out of business in the ups than the downs, which is interesting because when we go down, we can tighten our belt. Well, look at Zachary. Zachary declaring bankruptcy, right? One bad project, cash flow, got out ahead of their working capital, and all of a sudden, Zachary, one of the biggest construction companies in America, is bankrupt. And so being able to assess risk, that's why I love being on the risk committee of GHD engineering and risk, not tightening down all the risks, but understanding taking calculated risks for reward, for profitability, dealing with global supply chain issues, um, being able to pivot and really think through how we deliver, how we deal with talent shortages, how we deal with artificial intelligence. I did a study for the Construction User Roundtable this year, talked to 40 executives in the construction industry. We're just seeing the tip of the iceberg about how artificial intelligence is going to impact, and it's fun. There are some really amazing things going on, trunk tools, putting 3 million pages of documents in so you can just be standing there and say, like, hey Siri, what's the paint code for spec for this room in this level? So I think the last 4 years have taught us about being agile. They've taught us about how to deal with global supply chain. They've taught us how to aggressively go after talent and be the person that wins the talent wars. Um, yeah, and think nimbly and creatively about how we deliver these big programs.
Yeah, the first thing that I did in March of 2020, when I think it was in Milwaukee. I was looking at hotels for my retreats for the fall, and then I think Tom Hanks got. Oh, we were going to go to Columbus to see the lacrosse team play Ohio State in the Horseshoe, and that got canceled. I was really bummed because my parents were going to meet me up there. Anyway, so I told my son, I said, "Look, we're going to redo the deck." So I bought that lumber in March. If I would have done that 2 months later, I would have paid
Oh yeah, a
fifty,
lot more.
60% more.
Mm.
And
Yeah,
it was just, so when we were doing the deck, my son's like, Dad, why aren't you a contractor? I'm like, I come from a construction family. I've done all this. He's like, you're really good with all that stuff. I'm like, well, I built a lot of stuff when I was younger. I was always good with my hands, but my cousins, they're running the company, but I said, it's just, listen, you're working with your hands. You got my genes. You're just working on automotive stuff. I was, building stuff, and it I guess it's in my genes, or and I gave it to him. But and even my wife, she's a builder, and it's all, if you're not having fun what you're doing, that's the most important thing to me.
yeah,
And working with your hands, it's very rewarding because you can work, you can see what you actually, the fruits of your labor. And if you're not making mistakes, you're not working hard enough, because if you're not making mistakes, you're not going to learn. It's just the reality of it. And I don't care if it's business, personal, athletics, life in general, whatever you're doing, make mistakes, and you don't lose, and you win or you learn. That losing is not, it shouldn't even be in your verbiage. It's just the reality. And uh, but lumber, I remember that first thing, I went to Home Depot, I got my stuff, and then 2 months later, I looked what the prices were for two by
yeah.
fours or two by eights. It
Uh,
was
try
so
doing
expensive.
try doing a $70 million apartment complex, and lumber goes up 40%. It was absolutely crazy. And I agree with you. We're going to make mistakes. And the last chapter of my book is all about, the conclusion is about asking for help is not a sign of weakness, it's a sign of strength. I think the greatest leaders out there are really good at saying, I need help solving this problem, and bringing diverse people together to think about it. And being a great leader is not about having the answers. It's about knowing what strategic question we need to be asking right now and answering as a team. So, yeah.
I had a contractor from Australia, and she was telling me that uh, there was a project. Well, it really depended on where you were in the country, because Melbourne or Victoria, they all had different kind of how tight things were, and some
Mhm.
were a little more looser than others. But she said that there was a contractor, he was a residential guy. He probably had 300 homes, but they had already had, the contracts were written and everything, and then all the prices went up, to
Mhm.
build, and they had to go back and just say, look, I can't build these things for me, or my company's going to go out of business. We just have to, figure out the best way to do it. And she was
Mm.
telling me the story, and she goes, this is just one contractor, multiply that by whatever it is, plus in the States. I mean, everybody was going through it. And you live and die by the budget. I mean, that's just the way it is. You want to build something on budget, architectural stimuli on time, and
Yeah.
uh, and deliver everything. I always tell people, uh, under promise and over deliver, and you're going to look great, you know?
Yeah.
And
Well, and the other problem in Australia, I learned this when I bought a place in Melbourne last year, is we don't have 30-year fixed mortgages there. You can get maybe a 3-year fixed mortgage. So almost everybody's mortgages are variable. So when interest rates went up, it really created a middle class squeeze in Australia, and it impacted the residential market. And those are all those complexities. Yeah.
mm-hmm. So, um, what was one of the coolest projects that you've done over your years in construction?
Well, you and I were talking in the 90s. I worked on the Baltimore Ravens Stadium. In fact, I'm about to visit. The project executive was a woman on that back in the 90s, which was really interesting. Barton Mallow, Whiting Turner, HOK. And then I got to go back and see DU play in the lacrosse Final Four in that stadium years later. And so that was really fun. I worked on the Getty Center in Los Angeles when that was built. Um, Richard Meyer was the architect. It was an amazing, amazing project. I mean, I've worked on chip plants and light rail and golf courses. I'm a huge golfer. The JW Marriott Ritz-Carlton in Orlando, I worked with that project team and got to drive around and see him building a golf course. So that was really
Yeah,
fun.
I did my summit there at the at the Marriott there, and the Ritz is right next door to it.
Yeah.
And you know what we did is instead of playing golf, we played soccer golf, and you had to kick the ball off, and the people had the best time. We did uh,
Fun.
we did laser skeet shooting, and they have the fishing pond where you can fish. We had a little fishing tournament. That was an awesome event. That's a beautiful. If you get down there, you want to stay in a really really nice place. The Marriott, the Ritz, are right now, beautiful, beautiful campus. I mean, they got everything going on there. But oh wow,
Yeah. And I got to work on it from the ground up. So
wow, that's
it was
awesome.
really fun.
Did you when you were at the Dang when you were at Dangles in did you do any consulting or anything that was going on the DU campus at that time or get involved with any?
No, this is kind of a crazy story. So I stepped down from my manufacturing career and my husband and I got married, and I'm paying the mortgage kind of out of my savings. And so I was very motivated. I got a scholarship from my first quarter, a Heckman Scholar, had the top GMAT entering score. So I decided to do my MBA in 5 quarters. So usually it's an 8 quarter program, and I did mine in 5, and I taught 20 hours a week as a graduate teaching assistant to pay for my MBA. And then went to work. Well, I ran a Coca-Cola plant there for a year, and then I went to work for FMI in '94. So I lived and slept at DU as a graduate teaching assistant, taking 5 to 6 classes a quarter.
Oh
It's kind of
wow.
crazy. Yeah.
That's a heavy course load.
hmm
And
Yep. Got out with a 4.02, and I was very proud of that. And yeah, and motivated to get out and start earning money again. When you're used to having a good job and you go back to being a starving student for a short amount of time, it's good to get that paycheck again when you get out.
how did you get connected with Brickman?
With Brinkman,
Yeah.
so Hugh Rice, who started the FMI's Denver office in 1979 and started their investment banking and M&A business. Hugh's been a mentor of mine for, well, really, I mean, I had lunch with them last week. I see him all the time in Denver. And so I'd been on probably a dozen nonprofit boards, and I went to Hugh gosh, a dozen years ago and said, yeah, I think I'd really like to be on a contractor board now. And I think I can really add some value because I understand how contractors make money. I understand our clients. I advise them. I understand engineering and architectural firms, the whole supply chain. And so probably about a year later, he emailed me and said, hey, I think I have the right board. The Brinkmans became an ESOP, sold out to the employees, and brought me on as their first outside director. So that's how I became connected with Brinkman, and it's been a real joy to work with Paul and his brother Kevin, a co-founder, and Jim Sesla, the CEO there. It's been really great to be on their board for 7 years and feel like you're contributing to the strategy of an organization.
What's the difference that you think between the way that the USA builds versus the way Australia builds, since you've seen both I mean, it's all kind of the same, but with regulations and, what do you
Yeah.
see any difference or is it,
It's, as I said, it's so similar. Our suicide statistics are similar. Our statistics for, unfortunately, I mean, we are one of the industries with the highest suicide rate.
yeah.
They
Mhm.
have an organization over there called Mates in Construction. In fact, I just recorded a podcast with one of their people. Because the big construction spender is government, so they are pushing through a culture standard to improve the culture. Most job sites there are 6 days, and they're finding that young people don't want to work 6 days a week. And so they've done some really aggressive research and pilot projects ratcheting down to 5 days. Um, and really trying to change the culture. But if the government puts it in the procurement, it's like, I don't know if you remember when the Construction Industry Institute got really serious about safety, maybe 25 years ago, 30 years ago. And we developed a standard for how we were going to measure safety, total recordable incidents, TRIRs, and all of that. And the client said, if you don't have the safety record, you're not bidding this job. So they're doing a lot of that with the government spenders around, are you paying women equally? Do you have mental health programs for your workers? So really driving change in the industry through the client demanding it. Yeah.
Interesting. I had another guy that I had from Australia. He grew up in his father was into mining and he was out on the bush and all that. And then when the shutdown happened, one of his buddy came up with an idea and they built this huge runway with because all the planes had to be parked someplace.
Oh yeah, and they all parked him out there.
Yeah, and he was involved in all this. His name was Cian Brennan. Anyway, I'm friends with him on LinkedIn, and he always sends me a message here and there. But just talking to him, it's all the same, but it's a little different culture,
Yep.
and but it's still the same thing. You want to get things done, and you want to move ahead, and you want to learn from every project, and construction is I don't care if you're in India or Egypt or USA or down under in Australia. It's all the same thing. You just want to build beautiful stuff, be proud of it, and make sure people are safe so they can get home every night, in my
Yep.
opinion. And
A- Absolutely. One similar problem we have over there too is big cost and schedule overruns on large projects. And I know CII, Construction Industry Institute's done a lot of study about that in America too. So I think that's a global opportunity to have these conversations about it's a great industry and we're not broken, but there's things that we can do better. And that's what I'm really excited about.
so all you out there, if you're a male or a female, and you're out there in commercial construction coffee talk land, and you're listening to Gretchen, and you'd love to bounce some questions off her, or send her an email, or contact her. If anybody was out there, how would they reach out to you?
Yeah, LinkedIn, Gretchen Gagel, like a bagel. That makes it easy to find my last name. My website, gretchengagel.com. Um, yeah, those are two great ways to reach out and find me on Amazon, the book, Building Women Leaders, a blueprint for women thriving in construction, available on Amazon, amazon.com.au in Australia as well. Hopefully, we'll have some Australians listening to this when we post it there too. But yeah, that's the best way to find me, LinkedIn and gretchengagel.com.
So if you're out there and you're thinking about, maybe you have a daughter, maybe you have a son, and they're thinking about construction. Here's a person that's been around and she's done all sorts of things, as well as internationally. She's got and she's a pioneer. Look what all she's done. A trailblazer. Reach out to Gretchen and you can have a conversation and we'll put your Amazon link, in your description on this podcast. And what's your podcast called so people can find that
It's
too?
it it's called Greatness, and the reason it's called Greatness, and my consulting company is called Greatness, is the book Good to Great by Jim Collins, and why be good when you can be great, right? So elevating ourselves to really think about excellence. So yeah, Greatness is the podcast. If you put in Gretchen Gagel Greatness, I have 140 episodes with Olympians and leaders, and some are in construction, some aren't. But yeah, it's a lot of fun to meet people all over the world like you, interesting people that are doing great things.
Yeah. Yeah. My thing was when I had just bought my mic in March of 2020, and I was going to go out to interviews on the construction site, during my travels, and that's the way I was going to do it. And then everything went kaput. So I kind of just winged it. And I was awful in the beginning, but I didn't really care. Yeah, they were laughing with me. They weren't laughing at me. But some of my favorite people are athletes, just because I'm an
Yeah.
athlete, because they've gone through, understand about winning and losing. They know there's no I in team. But you can still have an individual flair, and that they've made that transition from, if they didn't get professional, which, is a very, very, small percentage of people are going to play in the NHL or, you know, whatever professional level it is, and that they can make the transition from doing battle on the soccer field to the business world. And in my opinion, you got to have thick skin to do business. I don't care what country it is. It is
Yep.
vicious out there. And you got to have thick skin, and you got to be able to take people chirping at you and coming at you in all different ways, and you got to have your head on a swivel. You got to be nimble. You got to be able to pivot. That word was used all over the last 4 years, and but those people are just true gems to hear of how they made the transition. But really, the athletic component, you can't replace that thing. And it's an amazing, and there's so many contractors that, played football, soccer, wrestled, and I don't care if they're male or female, swimmers, they all did these things, and now they're in this new field. But everything that they did as they were younger, and they did their athletic career, and they took that in and applied it to themselves. It's just so cool to hear these stories,
Absolutely.
So, any last thoughts? As far as what do you see coming down as, look, we got 2 weeks left in 2024. What do you see come down the pike in 2025 as far as any trends that we should look at, internationally or Australia, US?
Yeah, I think that term VUCA, volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous, that we've been coined, was coined in the last decade, is going to continue. And people are just going to have to be nimble. They're just really, I mean, change is not going to slow down. Embracing artificial intelligence, virtual reality, it's not going to make our jobs go away. And I've heard the saying now, you're not going to you're not going to lose your job to AI. You're going to lose your job to someone who knows how to do AI, right? That's my big goal for 25. I wrote my book without artificial intelligence. I decided no AI on my book. And now I'm going to immerse myself in learning how to help AI help me be more productive. And yeah, I think just and taking good care of ourselves. We are still seeing in Australia, and I heard a study recently that kind of mental health globally is at a bit of an all-time low. And so, how we learn to care for ourselves, care for our teams, care for our project teams, care for our organizations, and make sure that people are feeling physically safe and mentally safe, and to slow down. Everybody is just so flippin' busy right now. How do we get to the point where we have headspace to think about things again? I think that's really the trend in the future. And my parting comment is that each of us is a leader in the industry. We can have a positive impact on the people around us, our teams, our organizations, and how we think intentionally about how we step up as leaders and make these things happen, I think is really critical.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Um, you know, uh, every day this year I've run about 5 to 7 miles a day. So I was going to run from Atlanta. If I didn't 5 miles a day, it came to like 1,682 miles. It was almost from Atlanta to Denver. So my
Wow.
6 months, I did my assessment. I went over 1,000 miles, and now I'm finishing up, and I'll see where I'm at. I'll definitely go over 2,000. But every night I would go to the pickleball or cool down because my wife didn't want me to bring in the sweat in the house. And I started doing these little videos. So I would leave a little positive thought for everybody. And I'd talk about my day, and then I would do my thought and leave it with it. But I've done it. So I'm going to put my ebook together of 364 of my thoughts, and I've got long and short formats of it. And it, uh, and all of those things I believe in because I do them every day. So they're from my heart, and I believe in them. And I had one yesterday. It just says, the most effective way to do it is just to do it. Don't matter if you
Right.
know how to do it. Just do it. And there's no better time than the present. Like I've been trying to tell people the last month, don't wait for New Year's for your resolution. Do it today,
Yeah.
but do it for 6 months and then look back. If you do little things every day, every week, every month, just little things, the sum is always a week. You can look back, whether it's business, personal athletics, you'll see a change. And so will your teammates, your partner, your coworkers, and you'd be amazed. But it's consistency, it's mindset,
Yep.
and so but it was, and that was from Amelia Earhart. She had that quote, and it just kind of stuck me. I was like, that's what I'm going to do tomorrow. And but I totally I'm right on point with you as far as where you're going with that with your thought there. A couple things before we finish up. Number one, if you're out there on the construction site, we want you to be safe. I just talked about it, but I'm going to say it again. We want you to be safe. We want you to get home, have dinner with your spouse, your kids, your dogs, your pets. You've got a turtle or whatever, and get some REM sleep and be able to go do it, the next day. Number two, this is the athlete in me. We want you to stay hydrated. Hydration is so important on the construction site. Put some electrolytes in your water bottle, and even though here in the States it's wintertime, you still have to stay hydrated. Because number
Yeah.
one, your body's going to feel better, but number two, you're going to sleep better, and your body's going to operate better. And just stay hydrated. Liquefy yourself all day long, and you're going to just be that much better. Last but not least, we want you to hit the button so the algorithms can find this, and you can find Gretchen and her Amazon book and all that stuff. So make sure you hit the like button, and you'll find us out there on the wild wild web. So. Gretchen, pleasure meeting a DU Pio, and I can't wait to meet you in person. I know you're going back to Australia, but if you're in the States or whatever and travels, I would love to meet you in person, and be great to go through DU and go in there with you. So and we'll go talk to Dr. Mark, Levin, and say hi. So, uh, any last thoughts from Kansas City before we sign off?
No, it's been really fun, David. And I actually was in Atlanta 2 weeks ago. I have a new client there. So I think between Denver, where I am 4 or 5 times a year, Atlanta or someplace, or maybe you can even come visit me in Australia and come talk about construction over in Australia. That would be a lot of fun too. But thank you so much for having me on your podcast.
No, no, the honor's all mine. And listen, everybody, you got Christmas coming up. Listen, Monday, it's your last really day to get things done because Christmas Day on Tuesday, there's not going to be much going on. It's shut down. And there'll be a few people in during New Year's week, but basically the next 2 weeks is closed up here in the United States. Myself, I'm holding the fort down. I'm building my house, so I've got stuff going on, and I'm going to clean my desk up. But do yourself a favor. Recharge yourself, get yourself ready in January 1. Don't wait till January 20th or whatever with the inauguration. Be ready to go on January 1. You can't get time back. Make the most out of your time and start the year off with a bang. And if you're going to set any goals for yourself, make sure they're obtainable so you can reach those goals. Because if they're too hefty, you're not gonna succeed. And don't worry about making mistakes because that's just the way life is, man. Because we're all gonna make them. So, Gretchen, say goodbye from Kansas City.
Goodbye. Lovely to be on the show.
Yeah, thank you so much. And I'm going to sign off from Sugar Hill, just below the Buford Dam on Lake Lanier, about 25 miles north of Atlanta. And everybody, have a great weekend and enjoy the holidays. Happy Hanukkah, Merry Christmas. They're on the same day next week. And have a great the following week into New Year's and best of success in 2025. And we will see you next time on another episode of Commercial Construction Coffee Talk. Gretchen, honored to have you. Thoroughly enjoyed the episode. And I got to say this, go Pios,
Go
right?
Pios.
Go Pios. All right. Cheers, everybody. We'll see you later.